Fuel retailers fear that they'll have to dig deeper into their pockets to keep their businesses sustainable. This comes as the South African Petroleum Industry Association rings alarm bells over inadequate diesel stocks in the country. It says since the lockdown restrictions and the transition from alert level 5 to 4, the opening of the economy has resulted in more rapid recovery than expected.
To learn of the diesel shortage in the country has come as a big shock into the industry and particularly for the fuel retailers. You will recall that dealers are coming from a very difficult period. For 2 months, these dealers suffered 80% fuel loss in volumes, and unfortunately, even their shops have been down like 50-60%. And so this was the time when most dealers thought they will at least break even. And very unfortunately, when there is shortage in diesel supply, this means that they're still going to have to dig deep in their pockets to keep themselves sustainable. Very few of them can afford that at this time. All dealers that have come into the industry, particularly in the last year, 2 or 3 years, are really going to find it difficult to survive. Saying that because many of them come highly geared, many of them come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, and therefore they haven't had a lot of money to put down. This means that the business relies a lot on profitability to make sure that they're sustainable. They haven't got much money to dig deep into to ensure that they're sustainable. And so the question then is, how do we ensure that we preserve jobs? How do we ensure that these people don't close shop for good?
As lockdown restrictions are slowly being lifted, some companies have permanently shut their doors, others are battling to remain relevant, and others are going to prepare to go back to the office to ensure that they remain sustainable as the country forges ahead. Xolile Sizani is Group Chief Executive Officer at Servest, that's Africa's facility management firm. Thank you very much for joining us, Xolile.
Yeah, gentlemen.
All right. What can businesses do to prepare to open their doors for employees to return to work, given that some of the buildings that have not been occupied for quite some time could be needing this much needed, fumigation as well as deep cleansing?
Yes, I think it's a very important question. As they have announced that to be moving to level 3, and also at the organization of organization that open their doors. I think in making sure that we are ready for occupation, buildings are ready for occupation, I think there are 3 important aspects that need to be considered. So the first one is around the quality of service providers that we are using. In order for us to ensure that we eliminate and reduce the spread of coronavirus, using people that are qualified and trained to actually provide the services. The second part is about also the quality of the products and services that they use. It's important to show that as property owners and the companies, that we use suppliers that are using chemicals that are approved by the South African Bureau of Standards, also that are compliant with the recommendations of government and also the World Health Organization. But also what we also are picking up is that the use of PPEs that many companies are using, it's important that we make sure these are not fake PPEs. We've seen in the market an influx of fake PPEs that are putting many of our people that are returning to work at risk. So those things are going to be important as we prepare to open up our buildings. Once the buildings have been opened, the aspect of making sure that sanitization is done, we put sanitizers, we make sure that we've got access to running water, we make sure that our buildings are regularly cleaned, particularly on high-touch areas, these will be door handles, that we have regular cleaning of those. But also once, perhaps a month, we need to allow for professionals to come in to do a proper deep cleaning, which will allow us to eradicate any remnant of any virus or bacteria organisms that might be harmful to us in this COVID environment.
All right. Xolile, just to get in there in terms of bringing it closer to home, in as far as industry best practice around overall hygiene is concerned, what's the difference between deep cleaning and ordinary cleaning in as far as the process of making sure that there is a proper way of everybody acceding and adhering to the regulations of occupational health and safety standards?
Yes. I think normal cleaning is when you just brush the surfaces and you are actually removing dust particles. That's just normal cleaning. But with deep cleaning and sanitization, you are actually removing 99% of the bacteria through sanitization. You like fumigation, you're actually destroying a lot of organisms and making sure that the surfaces free of infection that might ultimately create, exposure of our colleagues to COVID virus. So that's the main difference between the two. Just wiping a surface is not sufficient to kill a bacteria. It merely removes the dust. But once you are using, for example, alcohol-based chemicals, we are using chlorine and other chemicals, we are now beginning to destroy and kill some of the bacteria and organisms that are not dying.
Okay, so what should companies and organizations do in as far as rethinking and looking at facilities, planning strategies to ensure that the safety and well-being of employees and learners? Xolile, are you still there? All right, looks like we have lost Xolile. He is Xolile Sizani, who is Group Chief Executive Officer at Servest. Then on to other stuff now, where small enterprises employ between 50% and 60% of South Africa's workforce and contribute around 34% of GDP. And there are over 5 million micro and small businesses in South Africa, many of which are located in the informal sector. So, in an effort to support small businesses following the devastating impact that COVID-19 has had on the economy, marketing and communication strategy Riverbed has partnered with MindShare and in an initiative to help small businesses affected by the pandemic. So let's get more of this. We are joined by Riverbed CEO Monalisa Zwambila. Thank you very much for coming through, Monalisa. What does it take for an organization to partner and say they're going to assist small businesses in line with government has already done to announce relief funding for these businesses?
Great. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. In terms of, what really is important for us, maybe just to start by saying, Ad Crashes is an initiative where, from a Riverbed perspective, we'll be looking at giving free advertising to small businesses. So in terms of the support that we need, it would be around how we are able to bring big business in to help provide us with the kind of exposure that small businesses need during this time. To that end, we've already managed to partner, with a couple of media owners, the likes of JC Deco, who own a lot of media inventory within South Africa. We've also partnered with an organization called ProVantage Media Group. And in so doing, we are then able to offer our small businesses exposure, the kind of exposure that is normally the preserve for big businesses.
All right. So now with this kind of offer, let's take the example of free advertising for businesses that would really not need that kind of advertising. Which ones are you targeting, and which ones would rather have this as a nice to have but won't really be working for them in as far as accessibility of their products, the distribution thereof, and making sure that it reaches their clients?
Right. Our approach, we obviously, I think what's really important is the support that we want to provide for small businesses. As you know, just in terms of the scope, you mentioned the numbers in terms of the number of small businesses that exist in South Africa. What was important for us in terms of our selection process was to look at small businesses that firstly are employing quite a large number of people. So our criteria is to look at small businesses that employ between 11 to 50 people. So that we know in terms of what we seek to do, we're also looking at helping to save jobs. That was really an important thing for us. We also want to work with small businesses that are consumer facing, so their products need to be targeted at consumers, and so that any advertising we do will help benefit their efforts. And so that was really, what we looked at in terms of the criteria from a selection process.
Are there specific sectors that you are focusing on? Because one would believe that the difference between the small businesses that are in supply chain management would not really need much interaction with the public, unlike those frontline high-end products, perhaps, or small-end products that would need to be advertised in their individuality so that clients can be spoiled for choice in as far as purchasing them online, for example.
Absolutely. You're correct in that regard. So as I said, we are looking at businesses that are consumer facing. So retail would obviously be a big one. We look at manufacturing. We know that in the context of this COVID pandemic, we have a lot of businesses that are now looking at manufacturing solutions and innovative solutions for consumers. It could be masks or things like that. So we're really looking at a plethora of businesses, but definitely they need to be consumer facing. So your retail markets, and manufacturing would be another one. It could be tourism as we open and start easing, the lockdown. We'll be guided really by the kind of entries that we get from a registration perspective, and we'll then be able to determine which businesses are best placed, to benefit from our initiative.
How can they reach you?
So the first phase, which is obviously what we're looking to do now, is really just create awareness around this idea, because obviously it's a national campaign. We want to be sure that we're able to attract the right kind of small businesses. The next phase is where we will be putting out a call for entries and for registration. People will be able to reach us on our website. We've developed an Ad Crashers website. They can reach us on www.adcrashers.co.za. We also are on social media at Ad Crashers, and I'm also on social media, and people are welcome to follow me on Twitter. And my handle is at Mona, MONA_ZWAM.
All right, thank you very much for making time, and we will follow up on helping those who would want to get in contact with you through social media and your website. And of course, we're speaking here to Mona Lisa as well.